Hi everyone. I'm Dr. Teagan from Pet Circle, and I'm just trying to do a live stream. Unfortunately, we had trouble with our Facebook Live. So if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to share a link with everyone from our Facebook so that they can come across and join us. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about how you can look after your pets during this different time that we're living in at the moment. I know that a lot of people are worried about the potential for COVID-19 impacting on their pets, and there has a lot of coronavirus from people with coronavirus. So I'll definitely be covering that today. So I can see I've got one person watching, which is good. Hopefully we'll see some more people come across from our Facebook, where unfortunately the live feed was not going to let me in. Yes, lovely to have you with me. One person who's there. If you do have any questions about looking after your pet, or how COVID-19 might relate to you and your pet, feel free to shoot them through. That's what I'm here for, to answer questions and hopefully start a discussion about what's concerning you about your pet's health. So let's just start with I think the most important thing to remember here is at this stage, there is still no evidence that you can contract COVID-19 from animals or from your pet. So I know there have been a few cases in the media this week. So there was a cat in Belgium that did apparently test positive for coronavirus. And I know that the WHO, so the World Health Organization, has just been informed. There's been a recent study that has suggested that cats can contract coronavirus. Now, that's a theoretical in terms of, cats have very similar receptors on some of their cells that we have, and that happens to be, in some cases, the receptor that the virus uses to infect cells. So that's what they mean in terms of cats being able to contract coronavirus. We do know that these cases are still extremely rare, and any cat that has tested positive has been in close contact with a human who's had coronavirus, and they have basically contracted that from their owner, and it hasn't gone the other way. So one thing I would say is I know that some of you, particularly cat owners out there, are worried about, will I, if you do test positive for COVID-19, try to have someone else look after your pet if you can, to minimize their risk, more out of an abundance of caution than any real risk to your pet. But if you do have to look after your pet, and you avoid making a human sick, so wearing a mask, avoiding kissing your pet or sharing food utensils, if that's something you like to do when you're healthy, then your cat is at a really low risk of picking up coronavirus. So I think with all this worry about can we pick up this nasty virus from our pets, I think it's important to remember that what we do know is that our pets can be a real source of consolation and support for us during difficult times. Excuse me. So, there's lots of studies, lots of evidence to say that pets reduce feelings of isolation and loneliness. And they also, in case they might need that vaccination now, so it's important to go ahead. So on that point, it's important to note that vets are an essential service. So that means they are open, and they will stay open as long as it's safe to do so, because it's important that our pets have access to healthcare when they need it. Vets obviously understand that and are working, but what the Australian Veterinary Association has said is, can we please call the vet clinic before we come down, because each vet clinic will be putting in measures to help reduce their own risk and your risk of any coronavirus transmission. So just social distancing measures, like perhaps operating the reception via an external window so you don't have to sit in the waiting room, or perhaps even doing a consultation in the car park or outside, and your vet will just be taking steps to minimise their risk. But it is important that regardless what's going on with us, that we're looking after our furry family members too. So yes, I definitely encourage you, if you're not sure as well, when it comes to, does my pet need veterinary attention? There's lots of great telehealth options available now. So we do have our own Ask a Vet service via Pet Circle. So that's a free service. You can send us an email and we'll, let you know what we think in terms of general advice for your pet. Obviously, if your pet's sick and needs urgent care, we encourage you to call your local vet clinic, or perhaps look into online consulting. So there are some vet clinics that are offering telehealth options as well. So your vet might even be able to see you via Skype or some other face-to-face over the internet, over your computer or over your phone, and give you advice that way. One of the other points I'd like to add is that a lot of people have asked in the last week question, because we think, we're in the supermarket, we're touching trolleys, potentially that's a source of transmission. So that kind of picking up a virus off a surface or a thing, a non-living thing, is called foam-like transmission. And we're still learning about this virus that causes COVID-19. So not everything is known. But what we do know is that it does last longer on smooth surface. So things like stainless steel, plastic, than it does on porous surfaces, say, for instance, dog hair. So while it's theoretically possible, it's really unlikely that you could pick up coronavirus from patting a dog or touching, doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing at the moment. The risk of picking up coronavirus from patting a pet is very low. If you were to shampoo and rinse and dry them thoroughly afterwards with a towel, because you don't want to leave those feet wet and damp. So I guess maybe I'll run through some of the questions that we had over the last week on the post for this Facebook Live, and jump across from Facebook to YouTube. So hopefully people see the link and they come and join us. I can see there's 5 of you watching there. So thanks very much for joining. I can't see any comments coming through. Hopefully that means that you're not asking questions and I'm not missing them. Although I would love it if you asked some questions. So feel free to shoot one through, even just a test, to say hello. That would be great. But one of the big questions actually that's come up this week is about anal glands. So hopefully those 5 of you that are there might be interested. But basically anal glands are a really common problem area for dogs, particularly small breeds. So they're little glands that just sit in the under the tail there, around the external anal sphincter. And when the dog goes to the toilet, a little bit of fluid is released from those glands onto the feces, and that basically is like your dog's signature scent, and it's a way of communicating. And dogs that smell that and then learn a little bit about what your dog is about. And so what can happen is, for a number of reasons, those glands may not express very well. And when that happens, it means that when they're not expressing, they can become blocked. And that can be quite uncomfortable. It can also sometimes result in infections. And so if you get a nasty infection in the anal gland, it can actually rupture and be quite painful. So I'm just getting some notifications here that my connection's quite unstable. So a bit of a rough run this afternoon with technology. What I might do is after this, I'm going to record some facts for you all to watch back later, just to answer some of those questions. So don't worry too much if you've missed out. Although if you've missed out, I guess you wouldn't hear me saying this. So There you go. So yes, anal glands, lovely topic. So some dogs do just need to seem to have them expressed over and over again. It's really painful. You might notice your dog scooting their bottom along the ground, or notice a foul smell. And so it can get to be quite uncomfortable for the dog and quite stressful for you, particularly if you're having to go into the vet really frequently to have those anal glands expressed. When they get to a point where they're really chronic, that there could be damage to the nerves in the area of the anal sphincter and a really small risk of fecal incontinence. But in saying that, with really careful surgical technique, that risk is very low. And you've got to weigh that up with the fact that your dog is obviously uncomfortable. So in most cases where it's chronic, I usually recommend having them removed. If you've just got sort of mild issues, and there's a few ways you can do that. So in some dogs, if they're not underweight, you can feed them a weight control diet. Often those diets are higher in fibre to help the dog feel fuller. You can also think about adding some pumpkin or some psyllium husk to your dog's diet. So they're both good sources of fibre that can help bulk up the stool associated with chronic skin issues. So if your dog's a really itchy dog, have a food allergy or an undiagnosed environment, can start quite early as well. So, I've heard of specialists who've seen dogs as young as 10 months old with true food allergies. So the thing to remember about food allergies in dogs is they're not actually usually towards things like grains or colours or other additives in the food, but they do actually appear to be, well, they are, to protein sources in the food. So most commonly in Australia, I think the most common one is chicken, and then also beef. So potentially, if your dog does have chronic anal gland problems, maybe worth talking to your vet about food allergies. So other symptoms of food allergies are, just itchy skin in general, particularly, recurrent ear infections, and itchiness from diarrhea or flatulence. So if they're clearing out the room with some sneaky farts, that could also be an indication of a food allergy. So something to think about and talk to your vet about if you've got a dog with chronic anal gland problems and they're really itchy or having other potential signs. Hyperthyroidism in cats, so cats that have an overactive thyroid gland. Now, that's quite a common problem in older cats. So what happens is the thyroid gland that releases thyroid hormone, which helps to regulate the metabolism. For some reason, they basically the thyroid becomes overactive, releasing excessive thyroid hormone. I just got a message there to say that the comments were turned off for this video. So what I'm going to try to do is I might step out and come straight back, everybody. So please bear with me, because I think if we can have a question and answer session with this, it would be much more valuable for everyone.